Hello, and welcome to American Amnesia. I am Cliff Garner, your host. I'm going to talk about something that's going to require a little teasing out because most people have forgotten about it. But there is no continuity between the 60s rebellion and the riots in the streets and the left at that time. There is no continuity to speak of from there until we get to the snowflakes of today. So there's going to be some people that are going to try to pull off the parallels of what they were doing back then and what they're doing now, and the comparison really doesn't hold up very well for a multitude of reasons. But one of the key ones is an event that kind of went through most of the 70s. I'd say it continued from about 70 to 80. And it's something that we used to call the Great Sellout. I don't think there are any books written about the subject. There are a lot of things that were tangential to it. The generational politics of the boomers. There were actually two waves of boomers. The first wave boomers were from born in the mid to late 40s to the early couple years of the 50s, and the second wave was from about 50, probably I'd say 4 to about 64, thereabout, right up until the baby bust. But even then, even the whole notion of this generational politics was a part of all that. You might see some traces of it in the terms of the Great Betrayal, and this is where the hippies sold out, and that's really what we're talking about. The Great Sellout was occurred in roughly from about 70 to 1980. I think it actually kicked in at about 72, although there were things going on before that. And what you need to take a look at to kind of get a gauge on what was going on is to look at the politics of 68 to 72. And if you look at the 68 Democratic Convention and contrast it with the 72 Democratic Convention, I think what you'll find is a very remarkable change. And that, and also the emphasis went from being a demonstration, or actually a reaction, the left reacting against the Democratic Party primarily in 1968, to where the focus became the Republicans, and that this shift in focus was part of the Great Sellout. What had happened is that you had in 1972 a large number of the youth delegates were 4 years before being arrested in the streets of Chicago. They did the conventions both times in Chicago, 68 and 72. In 68, you saw the riots, in which the police actually were the rioters primarily, and the whole world was watching. And then following that was the Days of Rage. And then you had Dellinger and Tom Hayden and Abby Hoffman and Jerry Rubin and several others. The Chicago 8 was originally what they were. Bobby Seale. There was a couple others. They were later reduced to the Chicago 7 after Seal was let go. But what you had was a remarkable climax, really, in '68, and the the postscript, I guess, so I can say with a little more confidence of pronunciation, came in '72. And what had happened is that suddenly a lot of these protesters were no longer protesters, but they were now delegates. They were the youth delegates, even if they were 35, And suddenly they were replacing the old delegates with the new ones, and the identity politics, even at this early point in the Democratic Party, had taken root. This is about the time that I got involved in electoral politics. Prior to that, I did a lot of reading. I was very interested in political systems and philosophy and ideas. I had already read Mein Kampf, which was really hard reading, the Communist Manifesto, and I'd read part of the Capital. It was that was some hard reading too, very dull. But I read those, and I read like Rousseau and Hobbes, and oh goodness, all the main philosophers of that time. But one of the ones I was reading quite a bit of was actually Schlesinger, and I think it was Schlesinger. Harrington, Michael Harrington, from the Socialist Party USA, and he was the one that brought the socialists into the Democratic Party, actually, en masse, basically. And I became very interested in socialism as a young person. But at any rate, this was I was young. I was quite young. 72. I was what? 14? Something like that. 14, 15. They're about 14. What do you think? 13, 14. Okay. At any rate, I had already participated in '68 with. I had an uncle that ran for state's attorney here in Illinois as a Republican, and my family was far more conservative, but they weren't really conservative Republicans, but they were Republican. My ideas. I was very curious, and I latched right onto Marx. I didn't accept Marx, but at any rate, let's return back to the topic. The '72 convention was a pivotal event there, and it had changed quite a bit of what had been going on previously with the anti-war and just the outright rebellion aspect of it all. There was a revolution, and they were winning. The government and the people that were clashing against the government were pushing the government's policies into pretty much the direction they wanted it to go in. And it kind of gave way within the Democratic Party. And basically what had happened is a lot of these young people that had been calling for the overthrow of the government and for the removal of certain persons and things from power, that they succeeded. They toppled LBJ, and then they made sure that Humphrey didn't win too. And when Nixon came in, I think a lot of them were angry that they didn't get their own person in, whoever that might have been. They didn't have anybody by that point. There was Eugene McCarthy in 68 that they were pushing, but he fell way short. And then in 72 it was McGovern, and McGovern lost terribly, and he was a peace candidate. Of course, Nixon claimed peace through pride or whatever it was. I mean, it was one of those slogans. And I didn't like Nixon very much. In fact, I rather hated him. Looking back at him, I see him as being a rather cynical, pragmatic internationalist, and really not a whole lot different from Carter. Well, Carter was probably less cynical, but he was definitely an internationalist, and did deal with realpolitik to a degree that a lot of us didn't see him doing, actually. He was also a lot more conservative than he was than history has judged him to be. And not only that, he has become more liberal with age to keep up with the Democrats. But yeah, Nixon was more on key with Obama even. Obama and Clinton big time. He was a very similar type character. He would lie through his teeth, and he would promote his agenda relentlessly. And he was he a good president? I don't think so, but he did do some good things. I mean, he did open up China. He would have been the only one that could have, actually, if you think about it, considering the time period. It would require somebody that had a good anti-communist credentials to be able to open that up, and he was quite willing to do so. But at any rate, that whole backdrop of time is significant, because you can see some of the struggles that were going on that involved the people on the left, and especially with the young people, that showed a group of people that sold out, and another group of people who were left behind and out in the streets without the barricades. What had happened is that the hippies, you want to call them that, they got their haircuts, and they took their baths, and they got married and settled down and had kids. And when they did that, they decided, well, now that we're in the Democratic Party, you guys, you younger people need to join up. You need to follow us. You need to listen to what we tell you. And we said, who are you? That's what happened. A lot of us my age, a little bit younger, said, who are you? Who gave you the right to tell us what to think? And they joined the Democratic Party en masse, and they did do that. And they left a whole bunch of people out in the cold. There was a lot of people that didn't want to go along with that either, and they were starting to join the Republicans. So you had them joining in there, and they were becoming the new conservatives, the conservatives with beards, actually. Which that was a real switch. I mean, they were the clean shaven and stiff collar, suit wearing party, and the Democrats suddenly became blue jean wearers, but they were still dictators wearing blue jeans is what they were doing. Hell, I went to Washington D.C. in 1974 4. What do you think? Yeah, it'd have been the summer of 75. And I met John Kerry, of all people. Was it 75? No, it couldn't have been 75. It was 74. Because Nixon was still in. He was. They were going to impeach him, and they pretty much chased him out. So yeah, it would have been 75. Yeah, 74, maybe 73. Yeah, I think it was 74. Yeah, I had to think. But I met John Kerry at a protest that the veterans were holding on the Capitol steps, and they were putting the tiger cages out there, and I got in the cage. and John Kerry, I'd have to be him. It was somebody that looked like him anyway. Really tall, shaggy hair about his shoulders, big old mutton chop sideburns back then. He was wearing one of those jackets, that the vets often do. You know, the sleeves chopped off and stuff. And he was real nice to me. I mean, he was a real talker. So was I. I mean, the two of us yak and act. And I was with a group of people, a group of students that had flown over there. But there were still protests going on then. You know, this is after 72. But by the time that Jimmy Carter got elected, and even Mr. Kerry had sold out by that point. But what you had by then was just en masse. They were all jumping in with Carter. And so when I graduated in 76, I couldn't vote in that election, by the way. I hated Carter. I really hated Carter. He represented to me, he represented the Great Sellout that was going on, and I was watching it occur from really that point. It really became obvious to me, because when the Democrats got elected into into the presidency, I shouldn't say national office, but when they got the presidency, they felt secure enough in their power to where they were not only just telling us to get in line, but they were demanding that we stop protesting because we couldn't protest against them. And this is where the real breakdown really occurred, in which the continuity between the left of the 60s broke, and it became the establishment. And those of us that were on the outside, our politics went from pretty centrist, really. I mean, I was debating Republicans mostly, but you got really ugly with the Democrats, because they were shooting protesters, and they were saying that we had no right to do that. And it was coming out in the radical papers. You had Mother Jones that sold us out. One of the things that rose up in response in the mid to late 70s, and it started in 73, was punk rock. And it was a reaction against the continued music forms that were going on and being promoted by the older group of the boomers. They were wanting to prolong their youth, pretty much at our expense. So we were stuck with their heroes, and we didn't really get an overturn. I mean, what they did with people, like Elvis and stuff, kind of shunted them out in the country or out to pasture. And suddenly, we were stuck with whatever they wanted to cram down our throats. And what they were trying to cram down our throats was disco, which was if you think about it, about as slick and meaningless an art form as there was. I mean, you had the same rhythm section on every freaking song. It was terrible, if you ask me. I mean, it was a wasteland of music. Now, I went to the discos. I mean, that was where everybody went. But I mean, you went to the disco. That was where the party was. You go there and you get your penny beer, and when they raised the price because that was too cheap because people got too drunk, you went there for the nickel beer. But and your chemical diversions were all there, and that's where the girls were. So that's where you went, and every once in a while they might play a nice rock tune for you if you were a regular and you tip the DJ. I used to get up there and pogo on the dance floor anyway, a head full of PCP and crap. But the Great Sellout was multi-dimensional, and it had a lot to do with the generational politics. And basically what had happened is that you had the older group of the boomers were offered a choice. Basically, they were told, look, don't tear down the system. It's a perfectly good system. It's yours. Do what you want with it. And unfortunately, they didn't have the sense of noblesse oblige, I suppose, that their parents and grandparents had, in which they saw service as being actually serving others as opposed to being the master and accruing whatever you could get and sell whatever was not tied down and everything else. So they took it. So I mean, if you looked at it like Christ's temptation, instead of rejecting the works of the devil and the kingdoms of this earth, they said, we want it. We want the world, and we want it now. And they took it. And we were their first victims. So, I understand why a lot of people don't want to look back at that time, but when we were going through it, there was a lot of recrimination and a lot of accusation and a lot of argument. And there was the response, and punk rock was one of those responses. And it sold out really fast. I mean, highest bidder, there it went, gone. Same with hip-hop. Hip-hop came along around about 1980. I suppose 79, I guess. But it was really, as far as I was concerned, just another deconstruction of music even further. Not only were black people not allowed to play their instruments, they weren't allowed to sing anymore. And as far as I'm concerned, rap has not been one of the better art forms, although there's some of it I like. I mean, some of it's actually pretty good, but most of it's just garbage. And we're even worse now because there's been nothing new. I mean, last thing that come along really moved at all was grunge. And that's so long ago. To speak of a generation, but the generational politics was nonsense. It was mostly a marketing thing originally, but it became a kind of a foundational cornerstone of the politics that was coming up. And so what you had with Carter was that, you had all these young Democrats that were former radicals that just jumped into the Democratic Party and supposedly transformed it. And I had read Alinsky long before that, and he had been an important figure prior to that, but because of the emphasis on working within the system, because of his emphasis on that point, suddenly his ideas, took over everything else, and so his rules for radicals was I think as far as the work goes, I think that certain aspects of it that were I think more deeper, I suppose, more I'm going to say metonymic, that they're deeper structures within the work, I think were neglected for more of the superficial dicta that are in there, such as basically making your opponent look like an idiot, basically. That kind of thing, I think, was more secondary than the actual goals that he was setting up as what were worthwhile for the ends to be met. And I realize that he wrote it as kind of a Machiavellian kind of a framework, but at the same time, I think that he really did have in mind of a greater freedom, as opposed to just a set of tactics of just pure nastiness. I really don't think that I don't think that we should paint Alinsky as a bigger devil than some of the other people that were also influential on the thought of the time. I think that he's a human being. He was good, he was bad. He did some good things, he did some bad things. As far as it goes, I don't think that Hillary Clinton really encapsulated his ideas. I think that she really was more of a tactics person. That she's just a really nasty person that was looking for an excuse to. Or actually a rationale for the way she was kind of naturally inclined. So that said, I think that the Alinsky has been partly painted black, I suppose, by people on the right, because for one thing, that a lot of them were influenced by him too in the early 70s and late 60s, prior to their selling out and joining on with the Reagan Revolution, if you want to call it that, which I didn't want anything to do with either. I found both Carter and Reagan detestable, and but one of the things I did like about Reagan is he scared the crap out of the communists. It's like, okay, well that's a good thing, Scare your enemies. Okay, I'll take that. I didn't particularly like him though, and looking back on him, I'm not terribly fond of him. There were things that he did economically that I didn't like at all. But the fact is that he did do some good things, and that he actually gave people a good attitude about America again, and being American. And basically, he more than the Bushes, I think that he influenced Clinton a great deal. And I never liked Clinton all that much either. I put up with the Bushes, and I put up with Clinton too. I mean, there was a reason why I started accepting certain aspects of globalism and neo-conservatism. Actually, I preferred neo-conservatism over regular conservatism because there was no baggage from the past, really. I mean, these guys were old Trotskyites. I kind of liked the breaking of the left-right thing. See, the end of ideology didn't come because of the left-right paradigm breaking. It came precisely because people designed it out. They didn't want to have that sort of, I don't want to say absolute or, absolute value or something. They were undermining any concept of value whatsoever. And I look at some of the way I helped in doing that, and same with other people I knew. This is something we need to try to remedy before we die. To reassert a certain value, a certain human value at least, that belongs in our vocabulary and in our daily life as a society. I'm not talking about morally. I mean, with God, we can work things out in our own time, but there's other things too. I mean, we have an effect on the rest of the world, and we are responsible for what we've done. And we're responsible for what we do once we realize what we've done. So this thing of the Great Sellout, it was the removal of the revolution. And instead of claiming victory, they kept continually wanting to expand it and to hold on to it and beat people on the heads with it. And they never admitted that they were the establishment, but they are. That's who the establishment is. It's the old hippies. That's who they are. And people my age, well, we're the young hippies, and then we became punks. And we were the When I got out of school, we were the long-haired guys that were carrying straight razors. So, when you look at the political situation, why are the Snowflakes so different from Abby Hoffman, or for that matter, for me and those of us that most of us went in the way of anarchism. And a lot of us ended up becoming libertarians later on. The reason we went through that pilgrimage was because we were reacting against the people that sold out and told us to get in line. Don't forget that. It was meaningful then, and it is today. And there's a reason why the Snowflakes are the cry bullies that they are. And there's a reason why that people like me want nothing to do with them, and wanted nothing to do with them for quite a while now. And we rejected them then when they first started. We first started seeing them wear those black masks and start turning over garbage cans and lighting them on fire. They're not us. They're the creatures that have been made, and not for good reason. So until next time.